Hello and welcome to another episode of Steelfur Supremacy, my new flesh and blood focused playlist, deviating from the Steelfur Speaks that you are so used to hearing, because this is specifically focused on competitive discussions, and I wanted to be able to put those into a playlist so that the people who were just interested in competitive content could get that from me. Today's topic of discussion, an initial estimate, theorizing discussion about Nationals meta tier list, right? It's coming up in a month. We all have that big question: what the hell am I playing in Nationals? What can I get the cards for? What's good? Chane is gone. What am I doing? Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today. I hope you enjoy this video. As always, a bit of a reminder before we dive into today's content. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video. Plenty of people watch and don't like and subscribe, but it is really how I know that I'm doing a good job and you guys like what I'm saying. And of course, always feel free to comment, question in the section, in the comment section below. I will always be happy to respond and engage with people. So don't be afraid to come and have a chat with me about what's going on, and if you disagree with me, that's fine. These are opinions. We're going to disagree about the game, and I may be proved wrong. I famously said that I thought that Chane would be the clear winner of the calling, and then it turned out to be a Prism deck that was entirely tuned to beat Chane, and that is fine. That is what happens when you properly predict the meta. You can get away with playing something that is not considered optimal. So let us sort of talk a bit about tier list. There you go, Tyler Horsball himself, the Prism player from Top Dep Keep. Very happy. Let's talk a bit about a tier list and what it's supposed to achieve, right? We've obviously got all our heroes here. We're going to be ranking. Obviously, none of the young heroes are being included. This is a classic constructed meta deck. We have our 4 heroes from Welcome to Wraith. Rhinar, of course, are slow, hitting with clubs, intimidating, leading up to that kill zone where they get you in with one huge attack that knocks you over with 4 intimidate. We have Bravo, either going control or a bit more mid-range, smashing people with his hammer, getting a bit of dominate, lots of on-hit effects and things you can't really handle. Katsu just keeps going again, keeps stabbing you, sometimes control, sometimes coming in with the control, lots of defense reactions and just keeping on stabbing and attacking when the windows are good. Dorinthia, if you block from hand, you die. If you don't block from hand, you die. She's a pretty good hero, guys. Dash, control with items, or overload, go again, smash, smash, smash. Did that attack just hit you for 10? Azalea, no. Sorry, not to troll the guy who made a good show with Azalea in the Road to National season. Azalea's interesting now. She's getting a bit more support. We're all kind of curious to see if that support takes her anywhere. Though it would have been nice to see her be able to use one of the new weapons. But, it'll be interesting to see if stuff like Seek and Destroy buffs her a decent amount. Overflex is quite an interesting card if you can only attack with 1 arrow per turn. And it reloads as well. So that'll be interesting to see if Azalea comes out swinging. I'm sure there's some Azalea mains out there who are thinking they're going to take this girl to Road to Nationals. Anyway, Viserai, massive buffs in this set, to be honest. Sting of Sorcery is huge in Viserai. Rosetta Thorn, really, really good in Viserai. Adding that to Arcane is amazing. And let's not forget the Spellbound Creepers, which are, a really solid deck as well. Kano, no. Kano is fine if people don't bring Null Rune. There will be some Nationals in the world where people don't bring enough Null Rune, and Kano gets into the top cut. Because, like for example, how many rounds do you need to win, right? Most Nationals are a mix of draft and CC. If you win all of your draft rounds, you can actually make the top 8, only winning 4 or 5 CC rounds. A good Kano player could theoretically burn his way into the top cut. And then maybe go out in a blaze of glory. But I don't know. I don't think Kano's going to win. These are young heroes, so we'll ignore those. Prism, obviously coming hot off the Vegas event. Please play that deck at your nationals if you want to. Chane doesn't exist anymore, but please play the deck that's designed to beat Chane. Do it for me. It's a favor. I'll be the aggro Katsu player in the corner, just stabbing your auras with my Kodachis. Yeah, so Prism obviously heralds or auras or switch. There are lots of different ways to build. Bolton with Raiden or combo Bolton. Lots of different options there as well. Levia, maybe. I have a lot of faith in Levia these days after playing her for a bit. You know, she has a lot of flex and she will roll dice. And if she rolls the dice and they roll well, Levia will come in for like 6, 14, 20 a turn and just smash your face in. Can't go wrong with that. Chane, not as bad as everyone thinks after the nerf. He actually still has a lot of good flex. He still has a lot of good cards. His power is inherently based on his hero ability, not in any one card. Though Seeds of Agony was obviously a very good card, Chane is still quite strong. Lexi. Play Lightning? Maybe. Does Ice really work? That's a question for another video. The answer may be no. How to deal with any of these heroes is still a mystery to a lot of people. Oldhim, he has Frost in his picture. Just build him Frost. It's what everyone expects. No one wants to see that Earth Oldhim coming out with the big attacks. They just want to see that Frostbite. Is he consistent enough? That's a question. We'll get to it later in the video. Brian, is she just going to zap you with lightning like Lexi? Is she going to come out with these massive attacks for like Arcane plus Dominate plus... Not Dominate, plus like 11 damage and go again to stab you with the sword? Is that what she's going to do? There's a lot of questions to be asked when we're trying to figure out the meta for this set. And really we have, no real way to do it other than just to sit down and realize that I haven't actually put the the Monarch heroes on this list. So let's put those on this list as well. I could have fancy graphics, but that's really just going to be a lot of setup for something that's not going to take very long. Because we're going to be redoing this quite a few times, I think. And we have... What's the last one that I always forget? Bolton. Okay. So let's do this and let's see where we think these heroes end up. Dorinthia. Dorinthia's really good. Dorinthia's first attack for 3 asks a lot of questions. Do you block? If you're blocking, do you block for 9? Do you turn off her attack reactions? Oh, I got a text. Do you turn off her attack reactions by just overblocking so she doesn't commit cards? Could be useful. Strips away her counters. Do you not block at all and just hope that she doesn't buff anything without reprise? Just take 3 damage. Get the go again. But this Warrior's Valor coming in, so now it's 6 damage. Where does Dorinthia fall? What are her bad matchups? Well, she's quite good into a lot of the field. She's good against Aggro Katsu. She has a good matchup against Dash. She struggles. So she's a good matchup against Bolton. People in Europe really love Bolton. Good matchup against Reiner. Struggles against Prism. Really struggles against Prism. Does she struggle against any of the new heroes? Maybe against Lightning Lexi? I think. Maybe a little bit. There's a lot of damage. You have to commit a lot of cards to block. But Dorinthia can switch to a more slow control build. She can swing in with the sword once, twice a turn. Without buffing it, just keep asking you to block. Or she gets counters. I think, personally, Dorinthia is up here. Tier 1. I think she's a really flexible hero. I think she adapts to every meta that she goes into. Her basic attacks are straightforward. They are threatening. You have to respect the Dawnblade. Dorinthia has won 3 Road to Nationals in the UK. I think the Dorinthia, especially in the UK, maybe in parts of Europe, is a strong hero. There we go. Tier 1 for Dorinthia. Where does Katsu go? Are we just looking at a repeat of the WTR meta, of the Crucible meta? Is it just Dorinthia, Katsu, and Dash? No. No, it's not. But I would be remiss if I didn't straight up say I think Aggro Katsu belongs up here just like he did before Chane went away. I think Aggro Katsu's up here. Is it the same deck? I don't think so. I think you run a few more blues in case you run into Oldhim. I think you run a few more defense reactions to deal with all the Dorinthias that are kicking around. But Aggro Katsu deserves his lineup there. Control Katsu, where does he go? Tier 1.5. Control Katsu still very good, but suffers to Prism. Really does. Doesn't push the damage to clear the shields. Tries to block too much. Has too many off turns. Suffers to Prism. Can a Control Katsu block out Alexi? Sure. Block all the arrows, they run out of steam. But how does Control Katsu deal with Bravo coming in with these massive things? Massive swings. There's a lot of back and forth in that game. Then we have difficult questions. Rhinar. In my opinion, test against the new heroes, Rhinar is a solid winner in this meta. He has a good matchup into Dorinthia. It's not one-sided, but it's good. He has a good matchup into Prism. The more Prism players that show up, Rhinar's quite happy. Yes, he has to roll the dice if you're running auras. Yes, he has to roll scab skins and win. But he can block a lot. And as long as he keeps 2 cards, he can swing with an attack and then swing with the hammer as well. And as long as he rolls scab skins every turn, he can break those auras. He has a permanent potential time snap every single turn. I'll play Sentinel. Okay, well, I'm losing my turn anyway. I may as well just roll a dice. And if you run Aura Prism into him, well, here's a deck full of 6 strength attacks. Where does Rhinar go? Is he a tier 1 deck? I don't think so. I don't think his matchup against Dorinthia is good enough. I don't think his matchup into Aggro Katsu is good enough. I think those two will gatekeep Rhinar out of being a tier 1 deck. However, and this is very important, Rhinar won loads of Road to Nationals, right? And would have won even more if Chane hadn't been such a big factor. Rhinar is a very solid deck, high skill ceiling, very, very flexible in how it plays, and very capable of closing out matchups, even against decks that are theoretically better in the matchup against him. Talk to any Aggro Katsu player that has run into a huge attack with Intimidate, leaving you on 4 life, and then you attack and suddenly it's Savage Swing for 2, and they block. You can't get through. And the next turn you realise you have to attack, but they Savage Swing again. You die. But you couldn't stop dropping down, because if you took the pressure off, then they would just kill you faster. So, Rhinar has a lot of push. Very good hero. Let's just pause for a second now, just before we go any further into this, of course, our fun game. I want to make sure everyone understands what these tiers mean, right? And this is very important. We have roughly, I usually run with either 3 or 4 or 5 tiers, right? You've got tier 0. I'm not putting any hero into that since, of course, he is now gone in a meaningful tier 0 way. But previously, Chane was the tier 0 hero. Tier 0 means this is the best deck in the format. You're either playing it or you're playing a deck that specifically counters it. Prism, Control. And if you're not playing one of those decks, you are likely going to lose for the players playing this deck. The tier 0 decks are the ones that start making up 50, 60, 40% of metas, of top cuts. They are the decks that people rapidly switch to because that's what wins the deck. I believe, and I'll delete this category now, that no heroes that we currently have in the meta are tier 0. I would love to be proven wrong. Well, no, I would hate to be proven wrong. Tier 0 heroes, in my opinion, are bad for the health of games. But if one comes out that way, then we'll have to figure out if it's really tier 0 or if something can beat it, like, say, a Control Prism deck. Tier 1 means one of the best decks in the format. It means it has consistent matchups into everything, or mostly everything. But maybe those matchups aren't super, like, they're not 60-40, they're not 70-30, they're 52-48, they're, 53-47, they're close. They're close, and player skill and draws usually determines who wins those games. Dorinthia versus Aggro Katsu, right? Who's winning that game? Who draws better? Who has the better skill? Who has the right defense reaction at the right time? Who has sideboarded properly? All these things make the difference between a tier 1 and a tier 1.5 deck. right? Tier 1.5, sorry, but as all those things make the difference between a matchup between two tier 1 decks. Tier 1.5. Tier 1.5 is the tier where everything that has just a few more bad matchups goes. Maybe it lacks consistency. Maybe it has one or two decks that are hard counters, as in they have like a 70-30 matchup against you. Maybe it's just this good, but not that good, right? It's good most of the time, but it lacks a bit of oomph to get it into the tier 1 category. That can be fine. You can just be like, this deck is really good, but sometimes it doesn't work. But sometimes it has a matchup that doesn't work. Okay. Tier 2 is your decks that can be good. They're not always the most consistent. They don't push the most damage. They don't have the most good matchups, right? But maybe they do something fun. Maybe they do something special. Maybe they can win if they have a good day. We saw Viserai. We saw Kano. We saw a lot of heroes that weren't considered tier 1 or even tier 1.5 winning Road to Nationals. The reason for that was they had good matchups. They had a good day. They drew well. They got their showpiece off. Sometimes those decks are based around a combo. If the combo works consistently, if they get a good high streak of rolls on it, then they get a win. And that's always good to see. Tier 2.5 are the decks that are trying to do something weird, but don't always succeed. And succeed genuinely less than they... Sorry, fail genuinely more than they succeed. That's where our 2.5 decks go. Will they win? No. Will they get some problems and give you some difficulty in Swiss? Yes. If you don't prepare for them, you may find yourself blindsided. They may make the top cut. One of them may even win. You know who I'm talking about. I can just put him in there right now. Kano. It makes me so sad to put him there, but he meets all of my criteria for tier 2.5. He has a specific strategy that's kind of weird. He's kind of a combo deck, but also kind of not. If you get a good run, you catch people off guard, you can make the top cut. If you're really lucky, you can win. But there's a reason that he only won one, and it's not just representation. It's because obviously the second that people see him in the meta, they start adding Null Rune, and then suddenly Kano starts not being so great. Okay. Bravo. Two Bravo decks. We have mid-range Bravo. Runs a lot more things that give Go Again or Smash, or runs a lot more big attacks. Focuses on hitting people with its big attacks every turn. And we have Control Bravo. Focuses on blocking a lot, swinging with the hammer, and then swinging with the hammer again until you take 6 damage to try and push damage, but you keep blocking. Where does mid-range Bravo go? I think it's up here. Mid-range Bravo has a good matchup into people like Dorinthia. It has a reasonably good matchup into Aggro Katsu, unless Aggro Katsu builds a sideboard specifically to deal with it. It has, I would say, good matchups across the board. It can put a lot of damage. It has a lot of on-hit effects that are very scary. What about Control Bravo? Been a staple deck for a long time, but I feel like its control just isn't really good enough anymore. I feel like it's not consistent. It can't block enough. It loses quite consistently to a few of the other big decks that can just push damage through the control. And due to that, it doesn't really hit back hard enough to have the oomph to get what it wants. Now, there's an argument that there are 2 dash decks. Typically, you would have Control Dash, which just runs pistols, and you'd have sort of an aggro boost dash. Most dashes I've seen just fall into the mid-range category. They have the capability of running an aggressive game plan or sideboarding into a more item-focused game plan, typically running a mix of both based on the meta. Where do we think Dash belongs? This mid-range Dash deck. I won't put Control Dash on there. I think Control Dash is not great. I think there's just too much damage still going on in the meta. I think it's solidly at 1.5. It has a good strategy. It has good matchups into people like Prism. It has good matchups into Bravo. I haven't played that matchup much myself. Rhinar is a bit of a problem, a pain for it because of Arg Smash, the card that destroys items. Because mid-range Dash does still like to put out some items on the table. But the ability to switch into boost is pretty huge, just for pushing aggro into certain games like Prism, like Aggro Katsu. It gives it a lot of flexibility. It gives it a lot of reach. However, this is one thing that may be worth considering. Does the presence of decks like Oldhim, the need for increased ice, push Dash down to a tier 2? And we all know Matt Rogers did his RIP video for Dash. I'm going to call him out. I think that was a bait. I think mid-range Dash is perfectly fine. And we'll talk about why I think that's a bait when we get down to Oldhim, Lexi, and Briar, the new heroes in the new set. Viserai. We have, of course, 2 variants of Viserai. We have aggro / mid-range. Let's just call it mid-range Viserai. And obviously we have OTK, control Viserai. Now I'm going to be a bit unfair to Viserai players. I think OTK Viserai is firmly down here. It works sometimes, doesn't work consistently. You didn't draw your Sonata Arcanix when you had the rune chance, and you lost the game. Or as I did when playing it once, I flipped 18 cards, I flipped 15 defense non-attack actions, I drew 3 cards, and started off worse than I had started the turn. It was not going well. Anyway, mid-range Viserai. This is a deck that runs Moravian Skies. It generates rune chants like crazy. It runs Spellblade Creepers. It runs all kinds of fun stuff. It's going to hit you. It's going to draw cards. It's going to hit you again. It's going to get some sneaky go again. It's going to stab you with the sword. It's going to do everything you want Viserai to. It's being boosted by Tales of Aria cards. I think it is solidly a tier 1.5 deck. What that deck list looked like, I'm, not going to go into right now, but I have seen some very interesting Viserai decks in testing. Azalea. Oh, Azalea. I am actually just going to put a big question mark next to Azalea. I genuinely do not know. I'm going to make a new category. I don't think it's fair to say, does anyone care? I think that's a bit unfair. I think Azalea has, through some repeated RTM performances and the buffs that she might get in Tales of Aria, I think she belongs in a question mark category. I don't think anyone knows exactly how good she's going to be yet. So I'm going to leave her there. I think she's probably a solid tier 2. But, we'll see. Then we have Prism. We have Aura Prism. And we have Aggro Prism. And we have Switch Prism. And we have all of the Prisms. Where do they go? Let's start with Aura Prism. Contrary to what you may have seen at the recent calling, Aura Prism is a weird deck. Not really that good. It's hyper defensive. It loses to anyone who can consistently get go again on their weapon attacks. For example, Dorinthia, Aggro Katsu. Not so much Bravo. Aura Prism has a very good matchup into Bravo. And if Bravo was all the field, then Aura Prism would be good. Aura Prism has a good matchup into Control Katsu. It has a decent matchup into Rhinar. It has a bad matchup into Dash, from what I've seen, and I think Viserai can take it to town. Aura Prism is not a good deck, in my opinion, but that being said, it can carve out its niche. A good player, as we have seen, can pilot it very, very well. However, do not necessarily expect to take the deck that won the calling without Chane being a factor into a tournament and necessarily win with it. Where does Aggro Prism go? Heralds are really big. They smash. They hurt. Aggro Prism has a reasonably decent matchup into... actually, I may put this at tier 2. Basically, Aggro Prism has the same problem Aura Prism has. It's a bit too focused. Some of these heroes up here, like Rhinar, like Dash, can effectively smash your auras, your heralds pretty easily. You do have a reasonably decent matchup into a lot of heroes. Dorinthia, for example, really hates playing Prism. But, Bolton will eat you alive. But that being said, I think Prism is alright. Not amazing. What I will say is that obviously we saw how Prism performed in the Road to National season. Part of that was gatekeeping by Chane, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Prism jump up one tier, maybe. But I think really, if you're going to play Prism, you should try and find a Switch Prism deck that can give you a good matchup into Bravo by switching in some auras, and a good aggro matchup into people like Katsu and Dorinthia. Basically giving you more options. So look into a Switch Prism deck that has a sideboard that can kind of flex you into either. I'm sure there's some interesting lists going around. Just be careful of those really bad matchups that you might have. But without Chane gatekeeping you, we actually might even see this deck up here. It has a good matchup against, I would say, all of these people. So actually, I'm going to put Prism up here. Aggro Prism, Aura Prism, both of them are too specialized. They lose their bad matchups. If you make a good Switch Prism deck, it's going to be up here. That's what I think. Then let's move on. Chane. He got destroyed. Does anyone really know? Does he belong in the question mark category? I don't think he belongs in the question mark category. I think he has probably dropped down to a solid tier 2 deck. I think he still has some flex. And this is it. So he might even be a candidate. I might put him up here as a tier 1.5. Chane has solid cards, solid mechanics. His consistency is still driven by his banish chains, which gives him a lot of flexibility and a lot of power. His consistency is hurt by losing Seeds of Agony, but I don't think it's hurt to the point that the deck completely disappears. I have seen some very interesting alternative chain lists going around that play without seeds that all look very strong to me. So I would not be surprised to see Chane operating at the tier 1.5 level, maybe tier 2. Then we have Levia. I am going to go out there and just say I think Levia is a tier 1.5 deck. All of you OTK Viserai players are like, what? But Levia's shit. She's not even doing half of what I'm doing. Levia is very good. She's criminally underplayed. She has a lot of very solid lines. She suffers a bit from variance. But actually, do you know what? I think she's actually quite good. But maybe because of the variance, we'll actually drop her down to a tier 2. I would not be surprised if a group of people got together and played Levia really hard and then won with Levia. I genuinely wouldn't be. If they had a good day and they had a good run, there are some very good Levia players constantly trying to make that deck work because they're in love with our chunky girl. There's no fat chain, by the way. The girl literally eats everything. She is buff. It is mad, right? Being thick is a positive this year, I'm told. And Levia literally ate a demon. So, she swole. I think I'm using this language correctly. Anyway, my point, right, is Levia is a good deck. Tier 2, solid. Bolton. Right, we've got Raiden Bolton, which I don't really rate, so I'm not... Well, I can put Raiden Bolton on here. Also, people are going to give out to me for not including Axis Dorinthia, aren't they? Let's put Axis Dorinthia down here in the tier 2 area. You have a gimmick. It works sometimes. It can be strong. But is it really that good? No. Maybe. I don't know. Before people tear me up in the comments, I've just never seen Axis Dorinthia perform in a way that I thought was really happy, except at smaller RTNs, which is why it goes into the tier 2 list, because it has won when it's had a good day, but it's not consistently very good, whereas Dorinthia herself is actually very, very good. Raiden Bolton. It's a tier 2. It's sometimes good. It has a few too many bad matchups. If you have a good day, you could theoretically win. Then we have Combo Bolton. Where does that go? It goes... Sorry, I just have to reply. Because someone is cooking me dinner, which of course we love. We love when people cook us food. Combo Bolton. Is he a tier 1.5 or a tier 1 deck? He's got to be something. Europe loves Combo Bolton, so he's got to be something. I think he's a solid tier 1.5 deck. He has good matchups into Prism. He has, interestingly, good matchups into Katsu. Bad matchups into Dorinthia. Bravo's a bit of a rough match as well. Some of the others on this list he has good combos against. Fine. Oldhim. We are talking about Ice Oldhim here. We're not talking about Earth Oldhim. That is a trap. I'm currently a subscriber to the theory that each of the heroes has a specific element they were designed to prioritize, and a secondary element they were designed to not prioritize. And I think we will see this switched around a bit in the supplemental set that will boost the secondary element of each of the heroes, potentially give us more joint cards that smooth out fusing as well. I've said this before in my other videos, but it very much feels like Tales at the moment is designed too much for limited, and we need the supplementary set to come out and actually give us give us the cards that aren't suitable for limited, but actually make these heroes work properly. They feel too clunky at the moment. They feel badly designed. I'd like to believe and put a bit of faith into James White that they aren't badly designed in constructed. Sorry, when I say badly designed, I mean badly designed in constructed play. For limited, the set's amazing. I spent all of Sunday drafting it. It's really fun. But for constructed play, they feel badly designed. They feel clunky. They feel like they're not doing things as well as other people for more of the cost. Kind of like Charge did as well with Bolton before people tried to find the way to streamline it into the combo deck that obviously doesn't need to charge and then do more stuff every turn. It just builds up. But you can't do that with these. You just have to keep extra cards in your hand. It's very problematic for the gameplay style. So it'll be interesting to see what the supplemental set brings out to them and how that boosts them, because they need a boost, really, to be honest. But Ice Hold Him will go into a Tier 2 deck. Maybe even Tier 2.5. It has some solid control elements, most of which can be solved by running a few more blues in your deck. Right, that's the summary of the truth. If you run more blues in your deck, you can get around a lot of the control elements in Ice, like Frostbite, like Dominate, like Discard unless you pay me 2. You put more blues in, you can make it work. You can't get around his defense reaction, forcing you to put a card on the top of your deck. That is annoying. That will screw up a lot of people. You need to plan around it. You need to test against it. You need to play for it. Hold Him, by his very presence, will cause these decks at the top to shift and build slightly differently. You'll see more blues and defense reactions in Aggro Katsu, maybe more blues in Dorinthia. Mid-range Bravo has already shifted. Prism eats him alive. I have not seen in any game I've played or watched or screamed or spectated Prism losing to an Ice Hold Him deck. No. So yeah, that's the thing. Lightning Lexi. I'm going to be honest and say I haven't actually watched Lightning Lexi play. She puts out a lot of damage, but I think she's probably down here. Maybe up here, based on what I'm hearing, just in the amount of damage she puts out. But, you know, these other heroes are more consistent because they lack fuse. Earth Briar. It's an interesting one. Has huge attacks, like literally smash for 11, smash for 12, smash for, smash for everything. I think she's a solid Tier 2 deck. You'll notice I'm putting most of the new heroes into Tier 2 or Tier 2.5 or Tier 1. There's a reason for that. We'll talk about that a bit now. I've decided I'm going to pull Azalea out of this category and just put her in Tier 2. We're going to assume that she's got some buffs and she's going to be quite good. We're still leaving Kano down in 2.5. He deserves it. He knows what he did. He broke my heart by being bad in CC after I played him in Blitz for 6 months. So, yeah, exactly. Anyway, right. We have this breakdown. Okay? We have 4 heroes at the top. We have some contenders for the top. We have a lot of Tier 2 heroes who could win on a good day. And we have one who I really just think isn't going to. But there's an argument that Kato could be Tier 2 as well. This is a good balance. I kind of want to reiterate that. I think that's very important to say. This is good balance, right? The fact that there isn't a Chane up here, right? We put him here. This is where we were before, minus a few changes. We had Chane up here. And then we had all of the other heroes that he knocked out. So Prism down here. Mid-range Bravo down here. Maybe Aggro Katsu up here. Maybe Chane, Dorinthia up here, just beating him. With Chane gone, this is a much healthier list, isn't it? I can confidently say 4 heroes are Tier 1. I can confidently say most of the other heroes in the game, remember we're already talking about a list of 12, no, not even 12, of 15 heroes. And already in the top, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those heroes represented, with the others coming in just behind them at Tier 2. And even with these, some of them, there's an argument moving up to Tier 2 1.5. This is why Chane was hit so heavy with the nerf. This is why Chane was addressed. Because this, as a Nationals meta, it's much more interesting to watch, spectate, play in, test for, in every way. You're not just saying, oh, you're playing Chane, or you're beating Chane, or you're losing. You're saying, wow, look at all the options I have. Almost too many, I would argue. There we go. And why aren't our shiny new heroes going higher up the list? As I said in my video, and you should watch that video about Tales of Aria design and the flaws of it. Just skip the first 10 minutes where I talk about how bad Duskblade is, because that got banned after I recorded the video, which is hilarious. And just listen to what I talk about when I'm talking about the fuse mechanic. The TLDR is that fuse is rough in constructed. It stops you from blocking because you need to keep the card to fuse in your hand, meaning you take damage. But the cards that you fuse for don't actually project enough threat compared to cards that from older sets didn't require fusing to justify that damage taking. So you're taking damage, you're fusing, and you're still doing something that arguably isn't as good as Dorinthia just attacking with the Dawnblade twice. That's essentially the problem. You can listen to more analysis on that in my other video, which I'll link below. And the other thing, of course, is that all of the cards you have to include to make your fuse targets, in fact, do block for 2. Each of the classes only has, each of the elements only has 1 card that blocks for 3, which is a basic attack that has no interesting ability, which means you're running a lot of 2-block cards just to get your fuse off, which means you're taking even more damage. It's kind of fine because you weren't going to block with the fuse cards anyway. But, to be honest, you need the option to block. Against heroes like Dorinthia, Katsu, you can't be running a load of 2 blocks. You need the option to block. Same against Bravo. You need to be able to throw down a 9 block if you want. And older heroes can do it. There's a lot more 3 blocks in the older sets. They don't need to be handicapped. Which is why, interestingly, you start seeing some decks like Earthbriar, Ice Oldhim, leaning less into the Ice, cutting out the other option like Earth or Lightning or basically the lesser of the two, the weaker of the 2 elements in their deck, and going with some ice cards that are good ice cards, so they can trigger a little bit of fuse, and then just putting in really good cards from old sets, right? Like Command and Conquer, Spinal Crush, Stoic Resolve, Staunch Response. All of the, I don't think Stoic Resolve is a card. Staunch Response. All of these cards are going in because they're just good. They don't require fusing. They don't require you to have a specific hand. They're just good. And if you can fit some ice cards and some fuse in there as well, you do. If you can't, you just play the good cards, right? I've seen Briar decks that are running Vexing Malice, Arcanic Shockwave, Singeing Steelblade, Sting of Sorcery, Moravian Skies, Oath of the Arknight. And how many of the cards are they running from the new set? 5, 6? No. Are they just running Bramble Spark and Ball Lightning? Not even fusing it. Bramble Spark, Ball Lightning, and then all of the cards that do arcane damage. Maybe Flicker Wisp as well, and some lightning cards to jazz it up, because they all do arcane damage as well. There you go. Is that the deck? Is that what? I mean, I would really love to talk to the designers, to people who made this set at some point. Like, is that their vision for this set? That the decks are just not as strong until the supplemental set comes out? Like, is Fuse meant to be a limited focus mechanic? Was this? I mean, this whole set feels like it was designed limited first. That's just something to think about. I need to go and have dinner because otherwise I will. Well, I'm really hungry. And I hope you've enjoyed this chat. As I said at the start of the video, if you have enjoyed this video, please do just like and subscribe. I enjoy hearing people's feedback. I have had a few encounters now at events where people have said, hey, your videos are really good. Brought a smile to my day. It brought, it made me feel great. Made me feel a bit watched, but that's fine. I can't say I'm doing this to not be watched, if we say that is fair. All right, obviously, if you disagree with this tier list, we are still very, very early in the Road to Nationals testing meta. We've still got a month. People have been practicing a lot of draft and trying to get tails into their hands. So this is likely going to change. Also, we do have the first Road to Nationals in New Zealand, which, of course, will impact everyone else's, I guarantee you, in terms of meta shifts. And then, of course, we have my own Road to Nationals in the UK, which hopefully I can win with some of the heroes on this list. I don't know yet. And then when we get around to other Road to Nationals, I can just give full unredacted discourse and discussions on what I think we're going to see and what was good and what was bad and everything without screwing over my testing partners who may be testing a deck on this list or near this list or something like that. When I know details, I will share them. I may not share other people's details, but I have lists and discussions that we can have for the rest of the month that will hopefully get everyone who watches this channel into a ready state for their national tournament when it comes around. Thank you all for listening. Have a great day. I'm going to go and eat some rice and meat, I guess. I don't know what I'm having with the rice. I think it's like salmon and soy sauce. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, thank you all for listening. I will post food pictures when I have community content abilities on YouTube. Get me to 1,000 subscribers so I can have community features and post tech picture updates, and I will post cooking updates, right? Because you guys don't know this. I worked in a kitchen for like 3 months as an assistant like cook. I have been cooking for years. I'm actually really good at cooking. So, you know, Steelfur Chef? No, that's a C. We need an S or something. Steelfur Sommelier? No. If no one can think of a good cooking name, then maybe I'll start doing some cooking videos if you guys really want it. Otherwise, we will keep doing the flesh and blood. Yep, that's it, really. What else to say? I mean, I've already shown off this. I love this. My slabbed. Only a 9, but it's a good 9. It's a 9 plus, I think. Yeah, 2 9.5s. But also, I have a feeling, and I watched Saint's video recently, just as a spicy tidbit for anyone still listening. I actually completely agree with him that I think I got shafted on the corners on this. The edges are definitely a 9.5. The surface is actually perfect, so I don't know why this only got a 9. The centering as well is really good as well, so I don't know why this only got the grades it did. There is a bit of damage on the back. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, really. There is a bit of damage on that back right corner. But otherwise, I think this was a solid 9.5, so I'm really kind of upset that it got a 9. But not to the extent that Saint is, but then I didn't send in 500k worth of cards. But I really would recommend anyone who is interested in grading and on the fence about grading to go and watch Saint's video. I'll link to it in the description, because he's a man who puts cards in for grading regularly, like really regularly. We're talking like high value cold foils, Heart of Ices, and obviously not Heart of Ice, Heart of Fiendals, you know, gold foils, all that kind of stuff. And obviously, you know, he is very invested and therefore very worked up when things don't go wrong, but he also makes some very good points. And I guess that's just something I saw earlier today I wanted to talk about for a second, which is just to go and watch his video. Beckett is overloaded with submissions. It's why most of their tiers are closed, and that does seem to be leading to a drop in quality. So if you are thinking about grading cards, I would really just recommend waiting until they start to get good reviews again, or there's another grading service the Fab community starts to rely on. Just don't send in your £400 card on a £180 grade thinking it's going to take it to the moon. That's just not how these things work. I got this graded, and I'll be honest, for a very specific reason. This is the first card I've won properly in a huge Flesh and Blood tournament. There was only 40 people there, but that's big for my country at the moment, and I was just so psyched at how that tournament went that when I got this card I said, I'm never selling this, I'm keeping this, and I want it as protected as possible. And I kept having it on the desk in one of these hard cases, like my cold foil husk is in a hard case, and it kept getting a bit of condensation in there, and I just kept getting a bit wary of it. So I thought, let's just pay the premium, let's get it slabbed, and that way I know it's protected and safe, and I might put it on the wall or because I'm getting a tree soon, and I plan on putting the tree and the tree mat framed on the wall, and might get the tree slab before I put it framed on the wall, just so it's protected as well. But that's the main reason, was sentimental value is why I got this slabbed. I wouldn't recommend getting things slabbed at the moment. The price is astronomical, the wait time is ridiculous, and as you can see in that video I'll link to, there are problems with it. But that's not a rant or a focus of this video at all. It's just something I watched before I recorded it that I thought people would find quite interesting. As things go, I'm Steelfur. This is the second episode of Steelfur Supremacy, my new constructed, focused playlist. Thank you all for watching, especially if you've made it this far. Most people don't, so you know, you are a special one of my viewers, and I really appreciate the fact that you are willing to sit and listen to me talk for 45 minutes. Much love, and have a great week.